Hello children, welcome to your English class, Excel English with VKJ. Today I am here to explain the lesson Indigo from your textbook Flamingo, which is a part of your English core syllabus of class 12 CBSE. Indigo was written by Louis Fisher. Before we begin with the chapter, let us know a little about the author Louis Fisher. Louis Fisher was born in the year 1896 in Philadelphia. He served in the British Army for 2 years from 1918 to 1920. He then made a career as a journalist and wrote for the New York Times, the Saturday Review, etc. He was a member faculty at the Princeton University. This lesson Indigo is an excerpt from his book, The Life of Mahatma Gandhi. We now come to the line-by-line explanation of the lesson. Kindly keep your textbooks in front of you. Open to page number 46 of your Flamingo textbook. When I first visited Gandhi in 1942 at the ashram in Sevagram in central India, he said, I will tell you how it happened that I decided to urge the departure of the British. It was in 1917. He had gone to the December 1916 annual convention of the Indian National Congress Party in Lucknow. There were 2,301 delegates and many visitors. During the proceedings, Gandhi recounted, a peasant came up to me, looking like any other peasant in India, poor and emaciated, and said, I am Rajkumar Shukla. I am from Champaran and I want you to come to my district. Gandhi had never heard of the place. It was in the foothills of the towering Himalayas near the kingdom of Nepal. Under an ancient arrangement, the Champaran peasants were sharecroppers. Rajkumar Shukla was one of them. He was illiterate but resolute. He had come to the Congress session to complain about the injustice of the landlord system in Bihar, and somebody had probably said, speak to Gandhi. Gandhi told Shukla he had an appointment in Kanpur and was also committed to go to other parts of India. Shukla accompanied him everywhere. Then Gandhi returned to his ashram near Ahmedabad. Shukla followed him to the ashram. For weeks he never left Gandhi's side. Fix a date, he begged. Impressed by the sharecropper's tenacity and story, Gandhi said, I have to be in Calcutta on such and such a date. Come and meet me and take me from there. So children, look at the first paragraph of the story. Here, Louis Fisher tells us that he first visited Gandhiji in his ashram in the year 1942, and Gandhiji had then told him that it was only in the year 1917 that he had decided to urge the departure of the British from India. And then he relates the story of how Gandhiji and Rajkumar Shukla, the peasant of Champaran, had met. So in the year 1916, Gandhiji was attending the annual convention of the Indian National Congress at Lucknow. And during the proceedings, a peasant named Rajkumar Shukla came up to him, introduced himself as Rajkumar Shukla, a peasant from Champaran, and requested Gandhiji to come to his district. Now Gandhi had never ever heard of the place. Champaran was a place in the foothills of the towering Himalayas near the kingdom of Nepal. From Rajkumar Shukla, Gandhiji came to know that in Champaran the peasants were sharecroppers and they were exploited by the injustice of the ancient landlord system of Bihar. And somebody had suggested Rajkumar Shukla to meet Gandhiji for help. Gandhiji told Shukla that he was already busy with several appointments, one at Kanpur and then in several parts of the country. But Shukla was adamant. He remained with Gandhiji everywhere. He accompanied Gandhiji to all the places. When Gandhiji came back to the ashram, once again he was with Gandhiji, and he remained for weeks and weeks at Gandhiji's side. Gandhiji was so impressed by the tenacity of this sharecropper that he ultimately decided to go to Champaran. So he told Rajkumar Shukla that he would be in Calcutta on such and such a date, and he asked Rajkumar Shukla to come and meet him and take him from Calcutta to Champaran. Months passed. Shukla was sitting on his haunches at the appointed spot in Calcutta when Gandhi arrived. He waited till Gandhi was free. Then the two of them boarded a train from the city of Patna for the city of Patna in Bihar. There, Shukla led him to the house of a lawyer named Rajendra Prasad, who later on became the president of the Congress Party of India. Rajendra Prasad was out of town, but the servants knew Shukla as a poor yeoman who pestered their master to help the indigo sharecroppers. So they let him stay on the grounds with his companion Gandhi, whom they took to be another peasant. But Gandhi was not permitted to draw water from the well, lest some drops from his bucket pollute the entire source. How did they know that he was not an untouchable? Gandhi decided to go first to Muzaffarpur, which was en route to Champaran, to obtain more complete information about conditions that Shukla was capable of imparting. He accordingly sent a telegram to Professor J.B. Kriplani of the Arts College in Muzaffarpur, whom he had seen at Tagore's Shantiniketan school. The train arrived at midnight, 15th April 1917. Kriplani was waiting at the station with a large body of students. Gandhiji stayed there for 2 days in the home of Professor Malkani, a teacher in a government school. It was an extraordinary thing in those days, Gandhi commented, for a government professor to harbour a man like me. In smaller localities, the Indians were afraid of showing sympathy for advocates of Home Rule. So months passed, and on the appointed date, Shukla was once again at Calcutta, sitting on his haunches at the appointed spot and waiting for Gandhiji to complete his work. Once Gandhiji was free, both of them boarded the train for the city of Patna in Bihar. When they reached Patna, Shukla took him to the house of a lawyer named Rajendra Prasad. This man, Rajendra Prasad, later on became the president of the Congress Party of India. Now at this time Rajendra Prasad was out of town, but the servants knew Shukla well as a man who kept pestering their master to help the indigo sharecroppers. So they allowed both of them to stay on the grounds. But Gandhiji was not allowed to draw water from the well because they felt that some drops from his bucket may pollute the entire source. Now how were they to know that Gandhiji was not an untouchable like Shukla was considered to be? Gandhi decided to go to Muzaffarpur first on the way to Champaran because he wanted to obtain some more information about the conditions of the sharecroppers more than what Shukla could have told him. So he sent a telegram to Professor J.B. Kriplani of the Arts College of Muzaffarpur, whom he had met before at Tagore's Shantiniketan school. Now the train arrived at Muzaffarpur at midnight on the 15th of April 1917. Professor Kriplani was waiting at the station along with a large number of students. Gandhiji stayed in Muzaffarpur for 2 days in the home of Professor Malkani, who was a teacher in a government school. Gandhiji says that it was an extraordinary thing for a government servant to give shelter to a man like me because he knew that in those days the Indians, especially the government servants, were afraid to even show sympathy for people like him who were advocates of the Home Rule. The news of Gandhi's advent and of the nature of his mission spread quickly through Muzaffarpur and to Champaran. Sharecroppers from Champaran began arriving on foot and by conveyance to see their champion. Muzaffarpur lawyers called on Gandhi to brief him. They frequently represented peasant groups in court. They told him about their cases and reported the size of their fee. Gandhi chided the lawyers for collecting big fees from the sharecroppers. He said, "I have come to the conclusion that we should stop going to law courts. Taking such cases to the courts does little good. Where the peasants are so crushed and fear-stricken, law courts are useless. The real relief for them is to be free from fear." Most of the arable land in the Champaran district was divided into large estates owned by the Englishmen and worked by Indian tenants. The chief commercial crop was indigo. The landlords compelled all tenants to plant 3/20 or 15% of their holdings with indigo and surrender the entire indigo harvest as rent. This was done by a long-term contract. Presently, the landlords learned that Germany had developed synthetic indigo. They thereupon obtained agreements from the sharecroppers to pay them compensation for being released from the 15% arrangement. The sharecropping arrangement was irksome to the peasants, and many signed willingly. Those who resisted engaged lawyers. The landlords hired thugs. Meanwhile, the information about synthetic indigo reached the illiterate peasants who had signed, and they wanted their money back. So when Gandhiji stayed for 2 days in Muzaffarpur, the news spread like wildfire, and the sharecroppers, the peasants from Champaran, started pouring into Muzaffarpur to meet Gandhiji, whom they considered to be a champion of their cause. The lawyers of Muzaffarpur, who were fighting cases for these peasants in several courts, they also came to meet Gandhiji and report to him about the nature of their cases. But Gandhiji, he chided the lawyers for collecting such huge fees from the poor sharecroppers, and he came to the conclusion that it is no use to fight the case at the law courts, because taking such cases to the courts does very little good. The peasants are already crushed, already fear stricken, so law courts would be useless. The real relief for the peasants would be to make them free from this fear. Now, as for the landlord system in Bihar and the arrangement made by the British landlords, the land in the Champaran district, the agricultural land, was divided into large estates which were owned by the Englishmen and worked by the Indian tenants. The main crop there was indigo. So the landlords forced all the tenants to plant 15% of their holdings with indigo and surrender the entire indigo harvest as rent to the Englishmen. Now, this was done by a long term contract. Now, the landlords learned that Germany was developing synthetic indigo. So now they obtained agreements from the sharecroppers to pay them compensation for being released from the 15% arrangement. The sharecropping arrangement was already irksome to the peasants, so many of them signed willingly. Those who resisted, they started engaging lawyers, and then in turn the landlords, they hired thugs to suppress the peasants. Now, meanwhile, the information about the synthetic indigo reached the illiterate peasant who had already signed, and now they were desperate to get their money back. At this point, Gandhi arrived in Champaran. He began by trying to get the facts. First, he visited the secretary of the British Landlords Association. The secretary told him that they could give him no information to an outsider. Gandhi answered that he was not an outsider. Next, Gandhi called on the British official commissioner of the Tirhut division in which the Champaran district lay. The commissioner, Gandhi reports, proceeded to bully him and advised me forthwith to leave Tirhut. Gandhi did not leave. Instead, he proceeded to Motihari, the capital of Champaran. Several lawyers accompanied him. At the railway station, a vast multitude greeted Gandhi. He went to a house and, using it as headquarters, continued his investigations. A report came in that a peasant had been maltreated in a nearby village. Gandhiji decided to go and see. The next morning, he started out on the back of an elephant. He had not proceeded far when the police superintendent's messenger overtook him and ordered him to return to town in his carriage. Gandhi complied. The messenger drove Gandhi home, where he served him with an official notice to quit Champaran immediately. Gandhi signed a receipt for the notice and wrote on it that he would disobey the order. In consequence, Gandhi received summons to appear in the court the next day. All night Gandhi remained awake. He telegraphed Rajendra Prasad to come from Bihar with influential friends. He sent instructions to the ashram. He wired a full report to the viceroy. Morning found the town of Motihari black with peasants. They did not know Gandhi's record in South Africa. They had merely heard that a Mahatma who wanted to help them was in trouble with the authorities. Their spontaneous demonstration in thousands around the courthouse was the beginning of the liberation from fear of the British. The officials felt powerless without Gandhiji's cooperation. He helped them regulate the crowd. He was polite and friendly. He was giving them concrete proof that their might, hitherto dreaded and unquestioned, could be challenged by Indians. The government was baffled. The prosecutor requested the judge to postpone the trial. Apparently, the authorities wished to consult their superiors. So when Gandhiji arrived at Champaran, he first started getting to the facts. First, he met the secretary of the British Landlords Association, who refused to share any information with Gandhiji, considering him to be an outsider. Next, Gandhiji went on to visit the British official commissioner of the Tirhut division under which Champaran district fell. The commissioner started bullying Gandhiji and advised him to leave Tirhut immediately. But Gandhiji was adamant he did not leave. Instead, he proceeded to Motihari, the capital of Champaran. Along with him, several lawyers went. At the railway station, there was a vast multitude of people waiting to greet Gandhiji. He went to a house and, using that house as headquarters, he continued his investigations. He came to know that a peasant in a nearby village was maltreated by the landlords, so Gandhiji decided to go and see him. The next morning, when Gandhiji started on the back of an elephant, a messenger from the police superintendent overtook him and ordered him to return to town in his carriage. Gandhiji obeyed him. The messenger took Gandhiji to his home and then served him with an official notice to leave Champaran immediately. Gandhiji signed the receipt, but on it he wrote that he would disobey the order. Because he decided to disobey the order, Gandhiji was now summoned to the court the next day. All night Gandhiji remained awake. He telegraphed Rajendra Prasad to come from Bihar along with some more influential friends. He sent instructions to the ashram. He sent a complete report of the incident to the viceroy. And in the morning, it was found that the town of Motihari was full of peasants from Champaran. They did not know about Gandhiji and his activities in South Africa. They just knew that Gandhiji was a Mahatma who had come to help them, and it was their duty to protect him. So they came in thousands and demonstrated around the courthouse, and that was the beginning of the liberation of fear from the minds of the sharecroppers of Champaran. The British officials, they felt powerless because without Gandhiji's cooperation they could not regulate the crowd. Gandhiji helped them. He was polite and friendly, but in spite of it, he could give a concrete proof to the Britishers that they could be challenged by the Indians. Now the British government was baffled, they were confused. The prosecutor at last decided to postpone the court trial of Gandhiji, and now the authorities, they wish to consult their superiors and then decide what to do with Gandhiji. Gandhi protested against the delay. He read a statement pleading guilty. He was involved, he told the court, in a conflict of duties. On the one hand, not to set a bad example as a lawbreaker, on the other hand, to render the humanitarian and national service for which he had come. He disregarded the order to leave, not for want of respect for lawful authority, but in obedience to the higher law of our being, the voice of his conscience. He asked the penalty due. The magistrate announced that he would pronounce sentence after a 2-hour recess and asked Gandhi to furnish bail for those 120 minutes. Gandhi refused. The judge released him without bail. When the court reconvened, the judge said he would not deliver the judgment for several days. Meanwhile, he allowed Gandhi to remain at liberty. Rajendra Prasad, Brij Kishore Babu, Maulana Mazharul Haq, and several other prominent lawyers had arrived from Bihar. They conferred with Gandhi. What would they do if he was sentenced to prison? Gandhi asked. Why? The senior lawyer replied. They had come to advise and help him. If he went to jail, there would be nobody to advise him and they would go home. What about the injustice to the sharecroppers? Gandhi demanded. The lawyers withdrew to consult. Rajendra Prasad has recorded the upshot of their consultations. They thought amongst themselves that Gandhi was totally a stranger, and yet he was prepared to go to prison for the sake of the peasants. If they, on the other hand, being not only residents of the adjoining districts, but also those who claim to have served these peasants, should go home, it would be shameful desertion. They accordingly went back to Gandhi and told him that they were ready to follow him into jail. The Battle of Champaran is won, he exclaimed. Then he took a piece of paper and divided the group into pairs and put down the order in which each pair was to court arrest. Now, because the government was delaying the trial of Gandhiji, Gandhiji protested against the delay. He said that he did not want to be a lawbreaker, but on the other hand, he could not ignore the voice of his conscience, because he had come for a humanitarian and national service for the sharecroppers of Champaran, and he would have to obey the voice of his conscience. Then the magistrate announced that he would pronounce the sentence after a 2-hour recess and asked Gandhiji to furnish bail for those 2 hours, but Gandhiji refused. The judge ultimately gave in and released Gandhiji without any bail. Now, when the court was reconvened, the judge said that he would not be able to deliver the judgment for several days, and they allowed Gandhiji to remain at liberty. Rajendra Prasad, Brij Kishore Babu, Maulana Mazharul Haq, and several other prominent lawyers had come to meet Gandhiji. Now, when they were worried that if Gandhiji would be sentenced to prison, then who would advise them and help them? So they decided to go back. But Gandhiji told them, then what about the injustice of the sharecroppers? The lawyers did not want to fall into this issue, and they decided to withdraw, because they thought among themselves that Gandhiji was a stranger, and then they thought that Gandhiji was a stranger and yet he was prepared to go to prison for the sake of the peasants, and they, on the other hand, being the local residents of these districts, they wanted to go home, and it was a shameful desertion for them. So they thought over their decision of going back, and then finally they came back to Gandhiji and told him that they were ready to follow him even into jail. Then Gandhiji said that the battle of Champaran is already won. What he meant was, when the lawyers decided to support him in the cause of the sharecroppers, in the cause of the poor peasants, Gandhiji was confident that the battle of Champaran would be won, and this was the beginning of their victory. So he took a piece of paper and divided the group into pairs and put down orders for each pair for the court arrest. Several days later, Gandhi received a written communication from the magistrate informing him that the Lieutenant Governor of the province had ordered the case to be dropped. Civil disobedience had triumphed, the first time in modern India. Gandhi and the lawyers now proceeded to conduct a far-flung inquiry into the grievances of the farmers. Depositions by about 10,000 peasants were written down and notes made on other evidence. Documents were collected. The whole area throbbed with the activity of the investigators and the vehement protests of the landlords. In June, Gandhi was summoned to Sir Edward Gate, the Lieutenant Governor. Before he went, he met leading associates and again laid detailed plans for civil disobedience if he should not return. Gandhi had 4 protracted interviews with the Lieutenant Governor, who as a result appointed an official commission of inquiry into the indigo sharecroppers' situation. The commission consisted of landlords, government officials, and Gandhi as the sole representative of the peasants. Gandhi remained in Champaran for an initial uninterrupted period of 7 months, and then again for several shorter visits. The visit, undertaken casually on the entreaty of an unlettered peasant in the expectation that it would last a few days, occupied almost a year of Gandhi's life. The official inquiry assembled a crushing mountain of evidence against the big planters, and when they saw this, they agreed in principle to make refunds to the peasants. But how much must we pay? They asked Gandhi. They thought he would demand repayment in full of the money which they had illegally and deceitfully extorted from the sharecroppers. He asked only 50%. There he seemed adamant, writes Reverend J. Z. Hodge, a British commissioner in Champaran, who observed the entire episode at close range. Thinking probably that he would not give way, the representative of the planters offered to refund to the extent of 25%. And to his amazement, Mr. Gandhi took him at his word, thus breaking the deadlock. So children, after several days, Gandhiji received a written letter from the Lieutenant Governor of the province informing him that the case against Gandhiji was dropped. So this was an example of the victory of civil disobedience for the first time in modern India. So Gandhiji and the lawyers, they now proceeded to conduct a detailed inquiry into the grievances of the indigo farmers in Champaran. So several 10,000 peasants had written down their complaints and other notes were made based on that evidence. Documents were collected. The whole area was throbbing with activity of the investigations and the protests of the landlords. So in the month of June, Gandhiji was summoned by Sir Edward Gate, who was the Lieutenant Governor. Before he went and met him, he met some leading associates and again laid some detailed plans for civil disobedience in case he does not return, in case he was arrested. So Gandhiji had 4 interviews with Lieutenant Governor, who as a result finally appointed an official commission of inquiry into the indigo sharecroppers. The commission consisted of landlords, government officials, and Gandhiji, who was the sole representative of the peasants. Gandhiji remained in Champaran for initially for an uninterrupted period of 7 months. Then again, he came back for several shorter visits. Gandhiji never thought that the first casual visit on the request of an unlettered peasant like Rajkumar Shukla would last for so many days, almost 1 year of Gandhi's life at Champaran. Now, after the detailed official inquiry, there was a lot of evidence against the big landlords. So they decided, in principle, to make refunds to the poor peasants. But how much should they pay? They asked Gandhi. They thought that Gandhiji would demand full repayment, which they had illegally extorted from the sharecroppers. But to their utter surprise, Gandhiji only asked for 50%. Thinking probably that he would not give way, the representative of the planters bargained with Gandhiji and offered to refund only 25%. And it was to their amazement that Gandhiji had agreed to the 25%, thus breaking the deadlock between the big planters and the peasants. This settlement was adopted unanimously by the Commission. Gandhi explained that the amount of the refund was less important than the fact that the landlords had been obliged to surrender part of the money, and with it part of their prestige. Therefore, as far as the peasants were concerned, the planters had behaved as lords above the law. Now the peasant saw that he had rights and defenders. He learnt courage. Events justified Gandhi's position. Within a few years, the British planters abandoned their estates, which reverted to the peasants. Indigo sharecropping disappeared. Gandhi never contented himself with large political or economic solutions. He saw the cultural and social backwardness in the Champaran villages and wanted to do something about it immediately. He appealed for teachers. Mahadev Desai and Narhari Parikh, 2 young men who had just joined Gandhi as disciples, and their wives volunteered for the work. Several more came from Bombay, Pune, and other distant parts of the land. Devdas, Gandhi's youngest son, arrived from the ashram, and so did Mrs. Gandhi. Primary schools were opened in 6 villages. Kasturbai taught the ashram rules on personal cleanliness and community sanitization. Health conditions were miserable. Gandhi got a doctor to volunteer his services for 6 months. 3 medicines were available: castor oil, quinine, and sulphur ointment. Anybody who showed a coated tongue was given a dose of castor oil. Anybody with malaria fever received quinine plus castor oil. Anybody with skin eruptions received ointment plus castor oil. Gandhi noticed the filthy state of women's clothes. He asked Kasturbai to talk to them about it. One woman took Kasturbai into her hut and said, "Look, there is no box or cupboard here for clothes. The sari I am wearing is the only one I have." So this settlement of repaying 25% to the sharecroppers was adopted unanimously by the commission. Gandhiji later on explained to people that the amount which was refunded was not as important as the fact that the landlords had to surrender a part of their money, and along with it they had also had to surrender a part of their prestige. So that was the larger victory. Therefore, the peasants now, who were previously treated as servants by the planters who behaved like lords, they now realize the peasants also had certain rights and they had people to defend for their rights. This is how the peasants learnt courage. They were liberated from fear. Now, within a few years, the British planters, they abandoned their estates because they were not receiving any more profits. They could not exploit the farmers anymore, so they left their estates and gave it back to the peasants. So then indigo sharecropping disappeared. Now, Gandhiji was not contented only with the disappearance of indigo sharecropping and the plight of the indigo sharecroppers. He had a larger perspective. Apart from political and economic solutions, Gandhiji also looked out for cultural and social solutions among the villagers of Champaran. So he wanted to do something for the villagers of Champaran. So he appealed for teachers. Mahadev Desai and Narhari Parekh, two of his recent disciples, they and their wives volunteered to work in the villages of Champaran for the people. Several more started joining in from Pune, Bombay, and several other parts of the country. Devdas, his youngest son, and his wife, Kasturba Gandhi, also arrived in Champaran. Primary schools were set up in 6 villages, and Kasturba used to teach the ashram rules of personal cleanliness and sanitation to the people of the villages of Champaran. The health conditions were miserable in Champaran, so Gandhiji arranged for a doctor to volunteer his services for 6 months in a year. There were only 3 medicines available there: castor oil, quinine, and sulfur ointment. So, a combination of these 3 medicines were given for different diseases. For example, if a person came with a coated tongue, he was given a dose of castor oil. If somebody came with malaria fever, he was given quinine plus castor oil, and anybody who had skin eruptions was treated with ointment plus castor oil. Now, another thing which Gandhiji noticed was the filthy condition of the women's clothes. So he asked his wife Kasturbai to talk to the women about it. Then one day, a woman took Kasturbai into her hut and showed her and said, "Look, I do not have any cupboard or box for clothes. That is because I have only one sari, and that is the sari that I am wearing." During his long stay in Champaran, Gandhi kept a long distant watch on the ashram. He sent regular instructions by mail and asked for financial accounts. Once he wrote to the residents that it was time to fill in the old latrine trenches and dig new ones, otherwise the old ones would begin to smell bad. The Champaran episode was a turning point in Gandhi's life. "What I did," he explained, "was a very ordinary thing. I declared that the British could not order me about in my own country." But Champaran did not begin as an act of defiance. It grew out of an attempt to alleviate the distress of large number of poor peasants. This was the typical Gandhi pattern. His politics were intertwined with the practical day-to-day problems of the millions. He was not a loyalty to abstractions. It was a loyalty to living human beings. In everything Gandhi did, moreover, he tried to mold a new free Indian who could stand on his own feet and thus make India free. Early in the Champaran action, Charles Freer Andrews, the English pacifist, who had become a devoted follower of the Mahatma, came to bid Gandhi farewell before going on a tour of duty to the Fiji Islands. Gandhi's lawyer friends thought it would be a good idea for Andrews to stay in Champaran and help them. Andrews was willing if Gandhi agreed. But Gandhi was vehemently opposed. He said, "You think that in this unequal fight it would be helpful if we have an Englishman on our side? This shows the weakness of your heart. The cause is just, and you must rely upon yourselves to win the battle. You should not seek a prop in Mr. Andrews because he happens to be an Englishman." He had read our minds correctly, Rajendra Prasad comments, and we had no reply. Gandhi, in this way, taught us a lesson in self reliance. Self reliance, Indian independence, and help to sharecroppers were all bound together. So, students, during Gandhi's long stay in Champaran, he kept in touch with his ashram. He sent regular instructions by mail and sought the financial accounts of his ashram. So, he continued taking care of his ashram along with caring for the people of Champaran. According to Gandhiji, this Champaran episode was a turning point in his life. He said that he had started it as an ordinary thing. He declared, but by the end he declared to the British that the British the Britishers could not order him in his own country. He also said that Champaran did not begin as an act of defiance. It started only as a small attempt to alleviate the distress of the poor peasants in Champaran, as per the report of Rajkumar Shukla. But this was the typical Gandhi pattern, according to Louis Fisher. His politics were intertwined with the practical and day to day problems of millions of people. So his was not a loyalty only to abstract things, it was loyalty towards real living human beings. So, in everything that Gandhiji did, he tried to mold and bring out a new free Indian who could stand on his own feet and fight to make India also free from the British rule. Now, during the early years of Champaran action, Charles Freer Andrews was an English pacifist who had become a devotee of Mahatma, who followed Gandhiji. So he had come to Champaran to bid farewell to Gandhiji on his journey towards Fiji Islands. Now, when Charles Freer Andrews came to meet Gandhiji, Gandhiji's lawyer friends thought that it would be a very good idea to ask Andrews to stay in Champaran and help them. Andrews was also willing to do it if Gandhiji agreed. But Gandhiji vehemently opposed it. He said that, do you feel that in an unequal fight it would be helpful if we keep an Englishman on our sides? It only shows the weakness of your hearts. So when your cause is just, when your goal is justified, then you must rely on your own actions and you should win your own battle. You should not seek the support of Mr. Andrews just because he is an Englishman. Rajendra Prasad later on said that at that moment Gandhiji had read their minds accurately, and that is why they had no reply. In this way, Gandhiji had taught them the greatest lesson of self-reliance. Self-reliance, Indian independence, and help to the sharecroppers were all bound together in this Champaran episode. I am sure, children, you have understood the lesson well. Now we'll continue with the story pointers and the assignments given to you. Children, we now come to the slide on story pointers. These are certain important pointers of the story which will help you to recapitulate the entire lesson of Indigo. So Rajkumar Shukla was a sharecropper in Champaran, Bihar. Rajkumar Shukla apprised Gandhiji of the injustice in the landlord system of Bihar. The farmers, that is the sharecroppers, were forced to cultivate indigo on 15% of their land and surrender the entire indigo harvest as rent to the landlords. After Germany developed synthetic indigo, the sharecroppers had to pay compensation for being released from the 15% arrangement. He requested Gandhiji to visit Champaran. Gandhiji was already busy, but Rajkumar kept following him till he promised to visit Champaran. On his way to Muzaffarpur, Gandhiji stopped at the house of a lawyer, Rajendra Prasad, the person who later on became the President of India. Then Gandhiji met Professor J.B. Kripalani. He met several advocates in Muzaffarpur and chided them for charging high fees from the farmers. Gandhiji arrived at Champaran and met the representatives of landlords and the Commissioner of Tirhut. He faced non-cooperation from them and was threatened to leave Champaran. he was summoned to court. Thousands of peasants demonstrated in favor of Gandhi. Gandhiji and the Jail Bharo Andolan, with the help of the lawyers, had begun. The Britishers were helpless and dropped the case against Gandhiji. Now this was the first step to victory in the Battle of Champaran. An official commission of enquiry was appointed. The big planters agreed to partially refund the peasants. Gandhiji asked for 50%, but they offered 25%. But then Gandhiji agreed and the deadlock was broken. The surrender of the prestige of the landlords was more important than the amount of compensation. The landlords surrendered and the peasants gained courage when sharecropping disappeared. Now that the sharecroppers' problems were over, Gandhiji's mission was not yet over. He wanted to remove the cultural and social backwardness in Champaran. With volunteers like Mahadev Desai and Narhari Parikh, their wives, Gandhiji's youngest son Devesh and Kasturba Gandhi, they joined hands. Thus, social work, education, health and cleanliness were addressed by Gandhiji. The Champaran episode brought a turning point in the life of Gandhiji. He tried to mold a new free Indian who could stand on his own feet. He taught his followers a lesson of self-reliance. Therefore, self-reliance, independence and help to the sharecroppers were all bound together. So children, what do you think is the theme of this lesson Indigo in brief? There are two main points in the theme to this lesson. Number one, Louis Fisher wanted to highlight Mahatma Gandhi's leadership to secure justice for the oppressed through argument and negotiation. The second important theme of the lesson was the contributions made by the anonymous Indians to the freedom movement in the light of Gandhi's principles. My dear students, it's a sincere request to you to kindly go through the entire text, go through the lesson Indigo, and then very carefully listen to my explanation in this video, and then please do the assignment given here. I have given you two different kinds of assignments here. The first one is to write answers in 30 to 40 words. I have three questions under this category. Number one, civil disobedience had triumphed the first time in modern India. How? Question 2, why was Gandhi opposed to C.F. Andrews helping him in Champaran? 3, what according to Gandhi was the beginning of the poor peasants' liberation from fear of the British? The second part of the assignment is to answer the question in 120 to 150 words. There are two questions under this. Number one, self-reliance, Indian independence and help to sharecroppers were all bound together. Elucidate on the basis of reading Indigo by Louis Fisher. Question number 2. How did Gandhiji work for rural upliftment during his stay in Champaran? Once again, I request you children to kindly answer the questions given here. Now there's an interesting fact for you which is related to this lesson. Did you know that it was only during this Champaran agitation that Gandhiji was for the first time called Bapu and Mahatma? Thanks a ton children for watching this video. I am Mrs. V.K. Jayashree from Excel English with VKJ. If you have liked my video, please like, share and please do not forget to subscribe. Thank you.